XAnalysts. Empowering analysts, transforming markets.
Hello everyone. Welcome to yet another episode of Exploring the Fascinating World of Energy Markets. That's how I would say. The purpose of the podcast is indeed to bring deeper insights from the experts in the industry. Not something that gets talked so easily, not something that gets talked so often about. And the bottom line is to inspire the analyst, the future generations, to do and pursue high quality analysis so that we can have high quality energy debate and certainly we can make high quality energy decisions. Today, my guest is Gero Farruggio, his partner at Rystad Energy, and has been leading multiple global businesses. Gero has been in the industry. He has seen it all from the fossil side to the renewable side, and now he's championing the energy debate with the cutting edge analysis on the renewable side. So today we'll be exploring a lot more about renewables. I and Shreya will ask some hard questions about AI. We'll ask some questions about how some younger generations are feeling nervous about this industry. So welcome, Gero. Welcome to the podcast, and really look forward to exploring the energy markets.
It's a pleasure, Mukesh. It's a beautiful sunny morning. I woke up, had a fantastic swim in the ocean, and now I'm here catching up with old friends. What a way to start a week.
What a way to start. And certainly I would like to hear more of your stories, Gero, as well across the globe. You've traveled a lot. But let me start off. What's really hot in the energy debate? You can choose to focus on global, or I would also like you to deep dive on what's happening in Australia.
Okay. Well, a couple of things. So I was fortunate to be down in Canberra a couple of weeks ago, and there was a nice event there where the industry came together with Parliament, and it coincided with the timing of the announcement where Australia is going to give the nation free power for 3 hours every day. Now, what an amazing announcement, and it really came off the back of this transition that we're going through and the oversupply of solar that we have. So it's a way of giving back to the country while addressing some of the volatility we have in the power prices. So we have that combined with an early announcement by the government. I think it was one of their election pledges to give discounted home batteries. And now the take-up there has been absolutely excellent. Australia leads the world when it comes to residential solar. We have a lot of that. Some say too much.
Mm-hmm.
But the question is whether in 2 or 3 years from now we do this podcast again, are we the world leaders when it comes to residential batteries? And I think that probably will be the case. These incentives combined with the 3 hours of free charging a day make it really, really exciting for the domestic side. So there's a couple of things here locally. But, it's not all going to be a smooth road. This is, at the end of the day, it's a transition. It's not an energy pivot where we're going to go one way and then suddenly the other. It's a transition over time. I think it's going to be longer. And what we're seeing is quite a few casualties. Only a few days ago, we saw a multi-billion-dollar solar developer in the US, probably one of the most hottest solar markets in the world, collapse. Mm-hmm. So there's going to be casualties on the way. And at Rystad, we study 5 forces that impact not just prices, but also the returns on the companies.
Now, fascinating, Gero, and I'd like to indeed dig deeper on these are important views about the market. The key is how do you build those views? So I'll dig deeper into the data and the number crunching you do. Mm-hmm. But you talked about certain, interesting situations like the collapse. I was in Madrid when the grid collapsed. So do you worry about going too much on the solar side when you are not combined with the battery side? And that leads us to ultimately suddenly burn more coal for power. Is there a dilemma in your head, situations like that Australia can face?
Look, that's a very good question. I think there was certainly lessons learned when you came to the topic of Spain. Mm-hmm. They had very limited rotational generation in the grid, and it wasn't very stable for quite some time, I understand. And when one fell, it was like a domino effect. Everything then collapsed. So the grid was down for some time there. We also had the world's biggest battery here, let's say explode, catch fire, fail, only a few recent days away. Again, lessons learned there. There will be a number of lessons learned in this transition, and by no means are they going to be the last two. I think there's certain things I think the industry's learned a lot from those two. But as we build the biggest solar farms in the world, and as we start the biggest batteries in the world, there are going to be lessons learned. So I think the next 3 years, something tells me it's going to be probably one of the most exciting, probably one of the most volatile that we have, but quite clearly the most important. We're getting to the point now here in Australia where we're getting closer to the retirement age from a significant amount of coal generation. So almost 50% of the capacity here in New South Wales. If we don't have the generation to back that up, then we have issues. We have blackouts. Right? But then if we have too much generations and it's there before the coal goes, then we're going to have issues with returns and pricing. And that's going to be quite painful. It could be painful in terms of high pricing. So how do we transition that? And I think the government plays an important role saying we know where we want to be, but how do we get there? Again, managing those structural forces we talked about, those 5 forces we talked about, structural being the one of them, which is over decades. And then you've got ones that are over more investment cycles, over years, right the way down to hours over the daytime, day and night. What we said, batteries have come in significantly over the last couple of years, and you're getting battery storage that used to be 2 to 4 hour, then 4 to 8 hours. And I expect over the next couple of years we'll be getting 8 to 10 hour battery storage, short-term storage, and that's really come a long way.
Now, fascinating. You mentioned about solar and that the batteries wave. And I've lived in Australia for 4 years. Fascinating time with you at Rystad Energy as well. I wanted to really dig a little bit more deeper into this question that Australia is probably a symbol where oil, gas, solar, wind, all kind of energy mix are happening at the same time. I think it's a very important country to study, in my mind, for rest of the world who want to go into this journey. From Rystad Energy's perspective, looking at the data and the numbers, what's most interesting about Australia's energy transition journey, which is unique?
Yeah, well, so what we're probably mid-40s, going up to close to 50% renewable energy now. So we're doing 50%. Really quite well. But what we've also brought along with that is the highest volatility in power prices globally. And I think Europe was panicking and companies were looking when the volatility was about 30 to 50 US dollars. And when it's been volatility, I mean, the difference of the power prices over a period could be 1 to 2 hours. Here, our volatility is close to like $300 to $500, so significantly higher. Not necessarily the highest power prices, but the volatility. So that makes it quite difficult. I think countries and companies are looking to us thinking, well, as we go through this transition, is this what we've got to look forward to? Is this how bad is it going to get? But as I say that not every country's journey is going to be the same, because countries that are going to approach 40, 50, 60% renewables over the next couple of years, they've got this newer, latest technology of batteries that could actually make it a smoother ride for them. So not every country is going to achieve this volatility. In fact, it might disappear completely for us in the next couple of years. We may have peaked out. So I think the big question of next year, is next year going to be the peak that we see in our volatility, or is it going to be any worse? I think if it gets much worse, it'll be quite painful for a lot of these developers. And we can't have these developers being in too much pain, because we're wanting them to double their investment by 2030, not half it.
Not half.
So how can they be doubling their investment if they're struggling to make returns? And unfortunately, we've already seen this with the wind industry today, where we've seen no wind projects being built in the NEM on the East Coast this year, or even achieve financial close. And so wind generation in terms of investment is very much drying up at the moment. There's a lot in the pipeline, but can these companies invest? Do they have the certainty to invest and give us 2 or 3 times the investment we need to hit those 2030 targets, and indeed when coal retires?
Now, I would say volatility, I see opportunities for trading. I worked in trading at Shell Trading for many years, and volatility is the hot topic from that perspective. And you make a very interesting point that as batteries come, probably there will be less volatility, and some of the other countries who will use advanced technologies that Australia is using might have a better transition. You also made a very excellent point that we sometimes watch with skepticism the battery fires. I mean, I come from the oil, and you have been long enough in the oil side. We had our big blasts and all those kind of events. So in this energy debate in Australia, across the globe, right, when one political party says get rid of the 2050 net zero targets and the other wants to accelerate, I want not your views on the debate, but I want to understand with data, number crunching, how to have a good energy debate, Gero.
Yeah. Look, Chief, there's a couple of points there. First, I want to touch on the point you made about the volatility. I remember when you go back a couple of decades, the power market was really boring. It was quite flat, very predictable pricing. It's not really much of a job for an analyst in that kind of a market. But also your point about the amount of opportunity to create value during volatility. I think that's a great point. So bringing this volatility, as long as you're positioned, you've got the technology and you've got the portfolio to capitalize on that volatility, could actually be a good thing and actually could be higher returns and bring more investment in. So, but you have to be in the right position. You can't have a complete solar portfolio or maybe even a complete battery one. Maybe you have to have a hybrid one, the ability to flex on that.
And a lot of swap deals on how the risk gets shifted from one place to another, which allows, as you said, the producers a stability to invest.
Yeah. And going back to the point about two sides of politics, you absolutely see. You see the newspapers every day.
Yeah.
Power is on the front. Either we're doing the right thing or we're doing the wrong thing. I think the best for everyone when it comes to what's best for the country when it terms about power and the energy transition is actually that there's no politics involved. If we could remove the politics from the side of it and remove it from the front pages of the paper, I think it would probably be the best for everybody. You see a lot of misinformation, you see a lot of opinions on either side, and you see it being a political battleground. But at the end of the day, actually, you've got this structural transition. It's happening anyway. We have to traverse it as quickly and as pain-free as possible. And I think just taking politics out of it would make it a little bit easier.
So how do you do that in your role in leading the teams of analysts, not just in Australia, across the globe? What do you do to make this debate easier debate from an analysis perspective, Jeff?
Well, I think I'm not sure if we get too involved in the debating side. What we do is help our clients make better decisions. So we provide them with the information and the view and the analysis and the support to be able to make those decisions in the environment today. And like I say, the environment 6 months, a year from now can be completely different. So it's very fluid. It's changing on a daily basis. So we have to be on top of that. We have to make sure we have the latest information. And we also then will make sure we communicate that in the clearest way, just to make sure the clients have the best access to data. So really, we don't really participate as much in the debate as any more than what we're doing today. It's more ensuring that the clients have the necessary information.
Well, coming to the point of information, my passion, Gero, with XAnalysts is to go granular. Like Rystad Energy is about data granularity. I am building about competency granularity. So as you have evolved through your years, looking at the fossil side, now looking at the renewable side, specific stories, specific competencies which have served you very well, and the people who are, pursuing this path, 1, 2, 3, you must learn and master this. What would comes to your mind?
Yeah, so I've been in the industry for this long, 26 years. I'd have to say I wasn't, and I'm not the best analyst. But what I've tried to do is be a little bit better each year. So I've focused on one thing each year and said, what can I improve and how can I improve that? Like I said, I'm not the best analyst, but what I can say with confidence, I've worked with the best analysts.
Okay.
And I've learned from the best analysts. And I look at them and I think, I'd like to be a little bit more like this individual. We've had this conversation ourselves. I said, Mukesh, this is an area where you really excel and you've inspired me in this. And And so I'm fortunate to have, we've spent some time together on our journey, but I've worked with the best analysts and I've learned from each and every one of them. And I think that's where I've tried to be a little bit better each year. And I say, I don't think I'm the best, but what I can say is I think I'm a little bit better than I was a few years ago.
No, that's very humble of you, Gero. I know you once told me you wanted to actually become a pilot, and now you're piloting the analysis side of the journey, working with the best analysts. Again, I would ask you, anything specific, the way to look at the market, the way to crunch the numbers, or the way to write the story? Where is the real deal to get better, right? Where is the missing link, right? Is it in number crunching? Is it in storytelling? Is it in writing better? Where do you see the differentiator for future analysts?
Mm-hmm. A couple of things on that one. I think some people, analysts, will tell you, just by the definition of the word analyst, will say, well, you have to do first principles, you have to really build the best models, you have to get the best data. That's all good. That was never my, in my tool shed, that was never my strength in that sense. For me, it's building the best network. So if I really wanted to have the best information, or I wanted to get the best view, I would actually pick up the phone, old school, and maybe talk to as many people as I can. And when you're blessed with
networking,
working with so many fantastic people in the industry, it's what I enjoy about the job. That's where I think you can really take all that analysis. Of course, you have to have a view, but that's where you take it from good to great.
So I think one key message that comes, and I think this topic of networking, talking with the best people will come. And what prompts me to say, don't just ask ChatGPT, go and ask the experts in the industry who can not only bring the number, but who can bring some of the context and how they look at the market. I think that's a very powerful message about the networking, Gero. Let me shift a little bit towards the point around in the energy transition space, in the energy mix space, so many divergent views, so many scenarios from Rystad Energy, from BP, from Shell, from IEAs, and IEA recently came up with a new report. What is wrong in the way this whole analysis debate happens and a topic gets blown out of proportion? What has annoyed you in all these kind of energy debates or scenarios discussion?
I don't think anything's ever annoyed me. I see an opportunity in every crisis.
Very good.
So if you see an opinion out there that's very strong in one way or another, then it's an opportunity for you to give your counter opinion. Of course, there's a lot of information out there. You think is this misinformation? But I think that's true about everything. But nothing really annoys me around that. I just see it as an opportunity to bring your view on your information to the table.
So, in your career, any stories, Gero, where you stick your neck out and you get it wrong? And of course, there are many times where you stick your neck out and you get it right and you celebrate. How do you deal when you get it wrong? What's the message you can give to some of our young analysts and who have the fear of getting it wrong or fear of falling out of consensus?
Well, I see the skill I'd say for most analysts to learn very early is never to admit when you're wrong. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen you put your hands up and say you're wrong, Mukesh, in that sense. But joke aside, let me put this question to you. What is worse? To be wrong, but to have sound process, or to be right, but it was just fortunate that you were right? What is better and what is worse? Where would you want to be as an analyst?
No, thanks for asking me. I think, and probably I'm sure that's the same answer you would have, is for me most important is to look at each of the factors and the parameters and do complete thinking and come up with this factor is giving this signal, this factor is giving this signal, and if you do an aggregate, the majority points towards a stronger signal or a weaker signal. So to me, it's not about trying to forecast. I'm humble to say I'll get it wrong. But what I would want always is to get the signal right, because the market trades and works on signals. And that's the kind of approach, and do a little bit more complete thinking of all the factors so that you don't miss out. And actually, that brings me, I'm going to ask a reverse question, Gero.
Well, I'll just first answer the question. I haven't answered it.
Okay, go ahead.
But I will answer the question and follow on to yours. And I'll answer it to the camera to message to your viewers. And it was a lesson I learned very early on in a former job. Prior to being an analyst, I used to steer all oil wells when horizontal drilling came in. We'd land the oil well and you'd steer it to keep into the reservoir. So I was in charge of steering that up or down. And sometimes we made the right decision and sometimes we made the wrong ones. Mm-hmm. But what I'd always say is we made the best decision with the information that we had at the time. We went up because the information was telling us to go up. It may have been the wrong decision, but that's what the information told us. And I think I took that lesson very much to being an analyst. As long as you can justify and back up your view with the information that you had then, whether you're right or wrong, almost always you have more information. So you're never going to be really wrong if you could justify when you had that limited amount of information at the time. Because it's a very different scenario when you have more information later on down the road.
No, I think fascinating point, and I would say from a trading point of view, because commodity markets is the transparency. People, even if you're right, but your analysis is like a black box, traders will not use it. So you have to make your analysis a white box so that you can explain how you get there, even if your thinking is wrong and your final message is wrong, but the transparency is very key.
I suspect the risks for traders are a little bit higher.
Yes.
With an analyst, you get it wrong. It's a report that was produced 10 years ago at the bottom of a pile. With a trader, you could lose billions of dollars. I suspect the consequences are a little bit more serious in that line. So the lessons learned, not to go into trading, maybe go into the analyst side.
So now I want to shift the conversation a little bit into AI, right? So AI is booming everywhere in many industries, and a lot of young students, analysts, some of them are worried, some of them are excited, some of them are hesitant about what AI has to offer for the industry, the job market, job security, detrimental impacts it has on the environment, and many other reasons why I'm very hesitant about this exponential boom of AI, because it has grown at a rate that I don't think anybody had anticipated. So I think that is what makes me a little bit nervous.
And they're all absolutely valid points. But let me give you a couple of, a little bit of hope on the back of a couple of those points. The first one is that, like I said, I've been doing this for a very long time. And in fact, I'll show my age when I said I've been an analyst for before even Google was around. And I recall the same hype, the same concerns when Google came in that this is going to replace everyone in the industry. Suddenly you can Google everything, we won't need any more analysts. But we're here and we're still around. Very much part of our daily process. We probably use it. Our clients probably use it, but it certainly hasn't replaced us. So I think AI, although significant, important, probably a bit more important than Google, but at the time it felt the same. I don't think it's going to completely replace us. What it will do is it'll improve our processes, make us more efficient, and help us to probably dig deeper and understand more. I think AI is going to help us reach for the stars. It's going to help us put man on the moon. But I suspect if 5 years from now, if we did this podcast again, we'll still be here, but maybe I won't be driving the car that gets me here. Maybe the car will drive itself. On the environment, again, let me touch on that point, because we work with a lot of industries, a lot of hyperscalers, as they call them. But when you talk about the companies that are developing this AI technology and the data centers, they are at the forefront of these hyperscalers. They're the ones that are really driving the technology and the investment in renewable energy. So you've got they're very responsible in the way they're doing that. They know they cannot grow by increasing emissions and relying on fossil fuels. So they've actually been a huge part of bringing the renewable energy forward and will be for many, many decades to come. So I think you've got hope in both those areas.
I'm also started thinking that there is a huge recycle happening of insights, and AI is probably going to accelerate the recycle of insights and the numbers from everyone, and we start becoming an echo chamber. Give me some examples and stories where you come up with an aha moment, an original insight, which the market was not probably talking about, and you had that idea that this is what is, and you went ahead and talked in the market and you changed the course of discussion. how to build that original creative thinking? Any stories, any personal kind of instances, Gero?
I think that's something that I've always enjoyed, whether it's throughout education or in my role, is that creativity. I like the creative side. And believe it or not, this job really does give you a blank canvas for you to explore and to leave your mark. So I'd only say if you have that creative side, very much like an artistic side of thing, even if you think it's like telling a story, it's a really great way for you to express yourself. In terms of a specific example, I had the career on the fossil fuel side, and I made that pivot myself to cover renewable energy in Australia at a time when there literally was little to no utility scale projects. But yet we set the process of analysing and providing a service for utility scale. And when I went out and did my research and did my interviews and speaking to the industry, most of them said to me, why are you doing it on utility scale? Australia's all about residential.
Okay.
But we saw the global trends. I saw what was happening elsewhere, and we knew that this was going to hit here at some point. So we managed to, I've been covering renewables for over 10 years here, and utility scale renewables, in particular solar, really only came in from about 2017 after the ARENA grants really did kickstart the utility scale solar. Now we've got thousands of projects, and it's a very established and very fast growing industry. But for a time there, we were just told, you're focusing on the wrong side of the business. I think that there was a bit of a vision there, but also a confidence that ultimately Australia has some of the best natural resources when it comes to renewable energy, and ultimately renewables at a utility scale will thrive here.
Well, you got this right. I think you thought ahead of time, and sometimes that needs a lot of courage and confidence. I know you have coached and mentored a lot of analysts in your journey. I wanted to ask, apart from the hard number crunching, the data, the writing side, there are many important soft aspects to become a strong and a competent analyst. Any things you would say that while you are building your skills on numbers, ABC, these three things, an analyst should master on the soft side or the other side?
Yeah, I actually would say that when you go through your journey, often people may say, well, you need to strengthen this part and this part, this part. But actually, and that often focuses on areas that you have probably gaps. But really, to thrive, you should focus on your strengths. So if your strength is to program and to do the data crunching and be more the backroom analysts, then focus on that. Commit yourself, do a great job. But if your strength is in the delivery, because remember, an analyst, they want you to be the data scientists, but they want you to be the newsreader as well, to deliver
the message, the story.
It's about delivering that story effectively. It's probably the one of the most important part. It's almost impossible to get someone that covers all of these. So you work in a team where you're surrounded by people, and it's the kind of group competencies, the diversity that's important there. But just be honest and open, where's your strength? And just make sure you're sitting in the right team. You could be the most brilliant analyst in the world, but you're just sitting in the wrong group of people. And yet in another group, you could completely thrive.
Yeah, I think you make a point that diversity is very key so that you can bring different points. A different question to test a little some of the thoughts from my side is that this is a very competitive industry, analysts, and a lot of people feel insecure about jobs, about what they do. A lot of guarding the Excel spreadsheets kind of things happen. Does that resonate with you? And how do you see some of the leaders in the analysis space, not just the analysts, but the managers and the seniors, any messages you would share to drive greater collaboration? Because there is competition, right? Have you noticed such a thing? What messages you have for the leaders of analysis?
Yeah, very difficult question, because when you've worked for this long, of course, you've seen people that have kind of worked like this and maybe guarded the spreadsheets, as you said, and others that are just much more open.
Open, yeah.
But like with any journey, I think the most important thing that I take away, I've only worked for a couple of companies during that time, even though it's a long time, but the most important thing I've taken away is not that you hit that deadline. It's not that you've hit that revenue milestone. It's the relationships that you've built along the way.
Mm-hmm.
That's the most important thing that I think I've taken away. And not only internally, but I say the reason why I'm here and what I enjoy about the job most is that the relationships I build externally as well. If I can help someone in the industry, and it's a fascinating industry, it's a very dynamic industry, if I can help them hit their goals, achieve their goals, and you've built a trusting relationship along the way, then that's what drives me.
Right.
So I think that when you look at these actions, whether it's guarding spreadsheets, whether it's responding to emails, how you do it, if you just remember that those relationships, people never remember what you say to them, but they always remember how you make them feel. And I think that's the one takeaway. But I think that's probably true with any job.
Now, I think especially in the analyst job, because there is high intellectual thing going on, I can certainly see from my experience that you get passionate about a certain topic. You want to debate it. You don't want to give your ground. And of course, I've learned the hard ways that sometimes it's good to give ground and sometimes it's good to stand your spine and not give up. And I think that's a tricky balance. But as you say, that the bottom line should be that relationships should be preserved.
With the one exception, I'd say, is airline pilots. I'd like my airline pilots to be technically brilliant ahead of their relationships. And maybe I wasn't destined to be an airline pilot.
Okay. Well, airline pilots go 35,000 feet and they drive and look the world from top. I want to conclude the conversation by asking this question. What's big thing Rystad Energy is going to bring maybe in 2026 for Australian market? That's what you focus on. What new ways of thinking, new analysis, is there anything we need to, you could share?
Well, I think we're very much reactive to what's happening in the market out there. And we're getting very close, like I say, to these coal closures.
Coal closures.
Are we going to see enough renewable energy investment ahead of those coal closures, or are we going to start seeing some blackouts? And unfortunately, when you start seeing these blackouts, that's when you maybe start taking the politics out of it and things start really happening. So there's one or two things that may actually need a crisis like that to get things done. And although we feel like it's a little bit difficult with the high prices right now, it can get a lot worse before it gets a lot better. So we certainly need a lot more investment in the infrastructure, and we need a lot more investment in the projects. But the storage, the short-term storage, is really coming in more than we expected. And I think the wild card to look out for then the next year, and the certain thing that I'm going to be excited about, is the home batteries, as we mentioned. Are they going to continue coming at this pace or accelerate? Have you got yours yet?
Not yet.
Will you this time next year? And then couple that with the 3 hours free generation, electricity in the daytime. Is that going to shift enough power to give us cheaper power prices at night? And is that going to create new generation during the daytime as well? Suddenly people are going to buy EVs and all charge them. Suddenly everyone's swimming pool is going to be going on, or they probably are anyway. Is it new generation or is it just shifting? So let's see where the power price volatility goes next year. But what I think it shows, and where I kind of commend the government there, it acknowledges that there was an issue. We had the highest volatility power prices, and we needed something to address that. That comes in next July, and I'm really excited to see the build-up to that, and what other, whether there's policies that may come in the next 12 months as well. And I think to follow on that, although sadly I was hoping we'd have COP31 in Australia.
Oh yes.
I think that would certainly highlight a lot of the achievements that we have on the renewable energy and the transition already, and maybe accelerate a little bit the next couple of years as well. Unfortunately, we don't have it as a location, but we do have the presidency. We do have the man at the top, so to speak, and I think that's actually quite exciting and could be another wildcard to look out for over the next 12 months. I'm certainly excited to see what that brings us and any exposure or spotlight position.
Okay, my last question is, 3 keywords for the markets going into 2026?
3 key words going into the market. Absolutely, I'll give you 3 key words, and the first one is batteries, batteries, and batteries.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the speed at which this technology has come on is quite incredible, and that's probably one of the things that fascinates me the most about renewable energy, is that we're trying to predict the future on today's technology, when the reality is we don't know where the technology is going to be in 5 years. Mm-hmm. And I think when we talk about the topic and the technology of batteries, the amount of investment that's going into advancing this and what they're achieving even on an annual basis is quite incredible.
Fantastic. Now, thank you, Gero. Well, you have heard it from Gero. Maybe predicting the crisis, the next big crisis ahead of time could be an analyst challenge. You heard from Gero as well, the solar, the storage, and the projects, investments. I think that's something very key thing to watch. And I think the third thing you heard from Gero certainly is about the policy debate, which might come sort of going forward. There's so much more to explore with the experience, which I can't cover in one episode. So I'm sure I'll get Gero back again to talk about how to inspire the analysts. And I'm sure, Gero, a lot of people would be looking forward, and you might be reaching out to you to learn more about your journey. And thanks for your contributions.
It's a pleasure, Mukesh, and thank you,
Gero.
All the best with your journey.
Yeah, thank you, Gero. Well, with that, look forward to another episode next time again, exploring the energy markets. Please do share your comments and critique as well. The bottom line is to have a high quality energy debate across commodities, across the energy sectors. Thank you, everyone.
XAnalysts. Empowering analysts, transforming markets.